Hi everybody, Fernando Perez here, world music guitarist. And today I wanted to make this video just as an answer to many people that writes me, usually writes me on the internet or through my website, etc. Players that guitarists that are trying to play Indian music on the guitar, on the slide guitar. You guys have been getting some of my books and courses about Indian music playing on the guitar. Many times you probably see me playing the Indian guitar, okay, the Mohan Veena guitar with all the sympathetic strings, but I always tell everybody that you can actually do it on a normal acoustic guitar using the slide. You could use it without the slide, but the slide always gets closer to the real sound, yeah? And I explain in other videos how, sympathetic strings and things like that, they are kind of like a makeup to what it is the real thing, which is focusing on playing the melodies right, with the right ornaments, etc. But, and I know that many of you have been trying and maybe you have some questions. Well, I do know because you've been writing. It's a pleasure to reply to all of you. So, I like to explain a few details, when to get into this, especially in terms of the guitar that you use, etc. I wrote a few things here that I thought it was important. For instance, tuning, how you tune your guitar. You could end up playing Indian music using the standard tuning, but other alternative tunings, that I like to call them, will be more appropriate, they will be easier to work with, and they will get you a better sound and tone on your guitar. Okay, so for instance, in some of my books, I use a tuning that is very close and similar to the one used on the Indian guitars, on the Mohan Veenas and on the Chaturangi and all these like original Indian-made guitars, yeah? And that is the one that is like from 6th to 1st string is D-A-D, D-A-D, just a copy, D-A-D, D-A-D, all right? It's a very easy tuning. It's very friendly with your guitar. You cannot risk it that you're gonna, put too much tension on the strings, etc., and pop out your bridge or do something crazy. Not at all, So this works really well. Then there is the second one that I made a video not too long ago, explaining a new tuning that I'm actually using myself nowadays more than any other, yeah, especially for Indian music, which is just a very similar thing. Is C, G, C, G, C, 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 G, C, G, C, C. All right. It's very similar to the one I just mentioned on D. It's just one step lower, which makes a really nice ringing. It helps also bringing forward the harmonics on the guitar and getting more that the feel like if you were having sympathetic strings. But especially I like the arrangement of having double C on the first two strings, because of the functions that we actually do when we're playing Indian music, all right? Because many times we have these drum strings on the original Indian guitars, which are like many times the fifth and the root, etc. They adjust depending to the raga, and this is the function that you have on the third and second string here. And then you have again C on the first string that allows you to play easier with the slide on the first string. You can also go and play on the other strings, obviously, and you're gonna do it, all right? But you get a nice ringing with these two working. Okay. So I really like this tuning. It's also really helpful because you can just put the capo, go one step higher, and use the same tuning on D, on C sharp, very much used with sitar players, or D, okay, or even going up all the way to E, that some singers or bansuri players, etc., would use. So you can actually have a tuning on your guitar that will allow you to change to other keys, just to put it that way, when you work with different instruments or different people, yeah? You can do a similar thing with the tune on D, but then you cannot go as low as C, all right? Which is something you might find for some instruments. So, next thing, it counts a lot, the strings that you're using in terms of the gauge that you use, okay? For some people, if you're not used to playing with slide, there are several things that we find when we play the slide, especially on the standard position, not on the lap position, is that the strings are very close to the frets. So you might make noises, you know, when you hit the frets. And you gotta be careful, so because if your strings are very thin, okay, then it's gonna be very easy to hit the frets, okay? So you need a little tension. First, for any acoustic guitar, it's really nice when you have some nice thick gauge of strings, you know. I think right now on my first string, I might have like a 0.13 or yeah, 0.13, yeah, maybe a 14 sometimes, yeah, but 13 is just fine, and it's something quite standard, yeah. And then the rest go according. You'll be able to tune your guitar on a standard tuning to play your normal stuff. You can use open tunings like that God if you play Celtic music, or open D or E, etc. when you play blues with the bottleneck. So the same gauge of strings is gonna work completely fine with your acoustic guitar, you know, for other styles. So you don't need to have several instruments, different strings or whatever, you know. Everything is about keeping the guitar just the way it is, and we just learn techniques and the way of playing music, you know. But I truly believe we should, you know, bring everything close as possible to the way the guitar is. And it's also a great thing later when you learn and you add that to what you know, all right? It makes no sense if you learn, let's say, Indian guitar, and I mean, if you only want to play Indian music, it's fine, but let's say that you want to play Celtic music and add some Indian flavors to it. You should be able to just do it, you know, keep all the Celtic stuff that you know how to play and then add the Indian flavors, yeah? Not having to switch when you're doing one thing or another. That wouldn't work on a composition, yeah? I think you follow me, yeah? So it's always very important that you try to keep the guitar as normal as possible, yeah? And I'm saying this, and you know I have a lot of different guitars from many places, but really, truly in my heart, I love when I can just take just one guitar and do everything with just one guitar, you know, without having to change or switch or do anything strange. All right, so in terms of strings, like I said, heavier gauge is preferred to lighter gauge. First, it's gonna give you a better sound. Okay, more powerful sound on your acoustic instrument, especially. All right. Second, when you use the tunings for the slide, you're gonna get better tension on the strings. Okay, so when you do all your glissando, your slides, your means that we call in India, you know. So you see, that's gonna give you more stability on the slide, so you don't hit the frets and make noises and stuff, you know. You're gonna see it's a game changer, you know, when you have the right strings. Many people, I assume, they are just picking up the guitars the way they have it, maybe with very light strings, you know, and they try the slide and they get really frustrated because it's super difficult, you know. You have to be super accurate. So this is a trick, you know, that many slide players, you know, they use gauges like that, so it becomes much easier, yeah? So if you're one of those, with the light string, you notice a big relief, yeah, and a lot of improvement when you change to a different gauge of strings. Also, you know, a lot of people, they really like the Indian sound, especially the sympathetic string, etc. What these strings are bringing are the harmonics, the tone, you know, the overtones of the sound of the guitar, which is really nice. So when you want to play all that on a 6 string without the sympathetic strings, remember, you know, having really nice, fresh, new strings, you know, keeping your strings quite fresh, you know, and not having like really old strings and, you know, and dirty strings that they lose a lot of the fidelity and the sound. That will help too, you know, because they will project better the overtones and on the notes. And even you're playing with a 6-string guitar, you happen to have a really nice one, you're gonna hear a lot of overtones happening, almost like if you were having sympathetic strings. all right? So that's another thing. And that's about the strings. Obviously, the quality of the guitar is going to help too. You know, it's not the same way an economic, basic level acoustic guitar, sound is not the same as a high-end one. I'm not saying go and buy the most expensive acoustic guitar. I mean, you can do that, it's great, but not necessarily, you don't really have to do it, you know? But obviously you're gonna notice a difference, you know, when you have a good quality guitar, it's gonna project better the sound and all those overtones, etc. All right, so some people, they get the idea of like, I'll do this with the guitar and maybe I plug it into an amplifier and that will help to get more of the overtones, etc. Might help a little bit, but it will turn your sound in a very electric or artificial one, which is fine if you like it, but if you want to get closer to the original Indian sound, keeping it into the acoustic realm of sonic characteristics, it's gonna help, you know, it's gonna be much better. So what else? I don't want to forget, I have my list here. Slide, the slide you use, okay? I use bottleneck here. I like the tone of the bottleneck. You gotta make sure, you know, your glass is kind of thick. Same thing if you use a metal slides, okay? It is important that you choose the right slide. I use the bottleneck on this guitar because my fretboard has a little curve, and the bottleneck has that too, so it adjusts better. Not that you need that especially for Indian guitar because you play a lot of things on one string, but if later you want to put more than 2 or 3 strings, you know, with bottleneck to catch them, you need to match kind of like if you have a curve in your fretboard. Very few acoustic guitars come with a totally straight fretboard, you know. If you happen to have one like that, you can just get another type of slide that is completely straight right here, okay? Not with a little curve. So that is important, okay? Another thing is how you hold the slide, okay? Usually if I was playing blues, my slide would be just a tiny bit more in the outside, and it's totally fine, it's not a big deal. But when I play Indian music, I like to have it a little bit more in, okay? Like this, you see the tip of my finger is showing up, okay? This helps me a lot, especially when I'm playing on the first string, and I don't want to touch the second or the third, you know, because I want to lift in, allow them to ring, yeah? Okay, so having the tip of your finger right there is going to help you better to feel where the end of the slide is and calculate better your moves, all right? Same thing when you're on the third string. Then remember that the second finger right behind the slide, that's your guide. The tip of this finger is the one that is feeling the string, okay? To feel where you are. If you are only with the slide on the air, not only is it's very difficult to keep the slide on the string, you know, it's slippery, but you don't feel anything. You don't feel through the glass or through the metal or through the steel of your slide, yeah? So when you have this finger engaged here, you're not only killing the noises behind the slide, but you're also feeling the string. And on Indian music, it's even trickier because you might be playing on the third string and you want to rest the fingers a little bit, you know, like this, just tilt it. So you keep the first 2 strings open, yeah? Okay. So that's one of the tricky things when you try to play Indian music on a standard position like this, but it's very doable and it's not as difficult, okay, as it might seem. It's just, you really have to know these little simple things, you know, to have the guitar properly set, okay, because if you're really playing with gauge strings and things like that, or your slide is a little bit shorter or longer, you know, like if it's a little bit more outside on the finger, like I said, it sounds stupid, but it's gonna really make things way more difficult, all right? And that turns into frustration and not being able to do what you want to do. Okay, or at least in an easy way, yeah? And everything, all this should be easy to play. You should focus on the music and on the phrases, on the inspiration, all right? So you always have to find the most simple and easiest way, yeah, to get there and become musical as you play, yeah? What else? Last thing here, you know, playing standard slide guitar just like this versus playing lap style, all right? It's about the same, you know. You can do it even on a normal guitar like this. You can put it flat like this, and you can use like one of those slides, you know, bullets, and they're called, or tone bars, you know, that you use for lap steel playing. You have the typical one, the steel one. This one, okay, if you use it on an acoustic guitar just flat like this, it's gonna be very challenging, because the first thing you're gonna notice is that on an lap steel instrument, the strings are much higher, okay? So you have no problems hitting the frets, but when you try to do it with this, it's gonna be very easy on a normal guitar like this with no separation between the strings and the frets to hit the frets, okay? Because you have to be very accurate, and this one is so heavy that it's gonna make it very difficult, especially when you're moving fast and you're doing a lot of glissandos and connecting notes, all right? But my solution is using a different type of tone bar, like this one here, which is more like a ceramic one. They are lighter, okay? The tone might not be as great as the steel, but it's still really good, all right? And being so light, okay, so with this one being lighter, it's gonna take you a little work, but you can master to play lap steel with a normal acoustic guitar without raising the strings, okay? And like I said at the beginning, that's super cool when you want to blend things that you already know, okay? So remember this type of slides, you know, that are like ceramic ones. They are lighter, nice tone, you know. What else? You can also play with a Weissenborn or a lap steel, you know. It's no problem. You can use the same tuning, you know. Both tunings that I mentioned work totally fine, yeah. The last one, for me, is the best. I will highly recommend you to go for it. And for that, there's no mystery. You know, you're not gonna have the problems with the frets and things like that. And the gauge is gonna be already heavy on those type of guitars. They don't use light gauge, so you don't have to think about what you have and change it, you know. That's more for a normal acoustic guitar. So that will work. Electric instruments also work, you know, but remember that the acoustic ones get closer to the type of sound that we hear in Indian music, especially on the Indian slide guitars. There are some cool things too, you know, that you get when you play on a standard position, and you're not getting with the lap style. For instance, if I press harder, just a little bit harder with my slide, I'm gonna start touching the fret, and it's gonna create a buzz that's gonna make a sound very close to the sitar sound. I have my normal sound. But if you hear, like, if I just pressed a little bit more, you know, towards the fret, I dig into the string a little bit more, I start getting. You gotta be very careful, because you're gonna get too close to the fret and you might get the noise of the slide hitting the fret. You know, so you get like different colors like that. That's something that you cannot do on a lap steel instrument, because the strings are very far and there are no frets in most of them. So you know, you won't be able to buzz it, yeah, to make it buzz like the type of bridges that you have on Sitar, Sarods, and other Indian instruments. All right. It is true that there is a trick. I remember I learned this many years ago from Bob Brosman. We were one afternoon playing in Hawaii, just by the beach, just hanging out and playing. And he started getting this sound, you know, just like that. And he went, wow, that sounds like a sitar, you know. And it was really cool, you know. He used it like, he would put the slide bar just completely parallel to the string, okay, instead of across the string, like perpendicular like this. And he would get that buzzing from the slide itself. I tried this many times to work it out on a normal lap steel, but the problem is like holding it like that and moving and making melodies and doing all the, connecting all the notes like in the Indian style. It's, I'm not saying impossible, because Might be, but it's not easy at all. You know, it's not flowing. It's super difficult. And he was not doing that anyway. He was just, I mean, I'm talking about Bob Brosman, yeah? He used to just pull out some notes, something like that, but he would not play like a whole Indian thing like that, yeah? So like I said, that's really cool. It's a nice trick if you play lap steel to, you know, get a couple of long notes, easy ones, sounding like an Indian sitar. But that's it, you know, it would not be, it's not a technique that you can move around really fast and flowing, yeah? So, well, I hope all this help you, you know, pursuing, you know, Indian music played on a regular guitar with the slide. And, you know, won't go away without recommending you on my works, you know, on different world musics, and especially if you like Indian music, yeah, you know, you can visit my website. You have there different books that I made for guitar in order to play Indian music, and also some online courses and things like that. And if you have any further questions, you can just keep writing to my email on the website, and I'll be always glad to reply as soon as possible. All right, bye now.